Hello, welcome into the Cafe Nightly Show. I'm your host, the Goldsmith. Today is the 14th of November. It is a Tuesday, and we're live in the Upland Cafe in San Francisco, Layer One. As always, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. PT. We do have the cafe show, or we have the Upland Cafe running currently in the Upland Cafe. Should be able to see simulcast. So if you can't make it into the Upland Layer One San Francisco Cafe, hopefully you're able to follow along in Discord. If you have troubles, feel free to jump into the Discord Cafe as well. But we hope you're all able to use the Upland Cafe. I know Upland's been working on making things work better, and hope we can get a full house without having too many issues like we've had in the past with potato mode and everything else. But getting things started off tonight, obviously, not a lot of news in Upland for direct announcements today. So we do have a few things that we'll be touching on that has been happening in the last week. Some things that have a very strong potential for a shift in the future of Upland in the very near future. And of course, we do have a couple small things that did happen tonight and over the weekend. Definitely worth reviewing for those who haven't got a chance to catch up on it yet. To get started, obviously, as of today, we did have a delay in passes, pass exchange for NFLPA memento passes. We'll get into the details there. We're going to look back at the Golden City Rush and the MV Motors Elite Fleet sales from last weekend or from over the weekend. Get into some of the ramifications and impacts, long-term impacts from both of those sales and what they may hint at as we do go forward, and how they may translate into future sales, into future opportunities in Upland. And reminder on dates, because we are inside the Ugliest Sweater Showdown submissions period. Get into the details there, how you can be involved if you're not involved now, if you're not familiar with what's going on, how you can get familiar. And of course, there is time to work on your Blender skills, to learn the requirements for submission, and get your design submitted. So we'll get into the details on that as well. And we're going to touch on a little bit of segment here for the potential of futures of structures in the game of Upland, both what is known, what is being speculated, and why it's a topic of subject right now, as opposed to one that we'll talk about in 6 months. Why should we be talking about it right now? Why people should be thinking about it right now? And of course, finally, do want to touch on one thing that I like to do when we don't have a lot else to talk about, when we don't have a lot of major announcements on a day, is to look forward and to look at what is going to be available over the next week or so to use UPIX on. What can people hold on to the UPIX for? What can we look at forward for sales in the next week, both speculative as well as very well known for upcoming sales this coming week. And before we get into all that, of course, all views and opinions expressed by myself, they're mine and mine alone. Obviously, important disclaimer up front. They are not game strategy advice. They are not financial advice. Shouldn't be taken as anything coming from or representing the team of the game of Upland. Contributors who we do have on, their opinions and their views are their own. They're welcome to them. But they don't represent myself, the Goldsmith of Cafe Nightly Show. They don't represent the team of the game of Upland. And they shouldn't be taken as game strategy or financial advice. Questions and comments are welcome throughout the show. With the little bit of delay with the potato mode, with a couple things that do go on with the interfacing back and forth with the Upland Cafe for Layer 1 Cafe. It can be hard to get to some of them, but I will try to keep up as we do go through the show. And then otherwise hope to be able to address things, and big part of that is open up at the end of the show for open discussions, people to use the cafe for communication, for discussions about the news going on the day of Upland, speculations moving forward, and again, what people are doing, what projects people are working on, and just essentially a get together. Got any other topics you want to talk about from Upland for the day or for the week moving forward here? Getting into it. So getting started here, obviously the first thing that I do want to touch on, and we'll take a quick look at, is an announcement here earlier today. Obviously, announcement up in our live updates, and we'll take a quick look at this live update here. On that live update, obviously coming from Lizette earlier today, get my share screen going so we can actually take a look at it. And let's find the right screen here. All right, take a look at our share. Take a look on our shared screen here. NFLPA update, everyone. Due to an error in the game numbers, in the in-game numbers listed on a few NFLPA mementos, the Week 9 pass exchange is postponed until next week. All mementos with incorrect game numbers that have been distributed already will be corrected. As a result, the current round of Ultimate Fan Challenge that was going to end here shortly has been extended to Wednesday, November 22nd at 9 a.m. PT. The start date for the Ultimate Fan Challenge 3 is obviously going to get postponed as well. That's going to be pushed back until Thursday, November 23rd at 9 a.m. PT. So if you are in this period in Challenge 2, obviously keep in mind that it's going to continue to run for another week here longer, or another several days anyways. And Challenge 3 is going to start next week on the 23rd. Obviously, Upland puts out that thank you for understanding. And there's some of the details here. We can jump in, take a closer look at the details. The details on this announcement obviously is going to be the update as we do go along with the previous version, as well as the modifications here. So what we're looking at now is the start of the Challenge 2, the Ultimate Fan Challenge 2, was the 19th of October. Obviously, that has been pushed to November 22nd as the end period. The 23rd starts the challenge number 3, and that period is going to end, it looks like at the same time, December 14th, 9 a.m. PT, that it was going to end before. Again, key thing here is with the Ultimate Game, Ultimate Fan Challenge, we do know that we did see the starting point matters, where you start with your points and your accumulation of fan score. So do keep that in mind if you're trying to manage your fan score, if you're deciding when to purchase, if you haven't bought anything now but you're going to buy a bunch in 2 weeks. Keep in mind when the score is going to start, when the scores are going to reset for the next period, for the next run of how much fan score you can accumulate over that period of time. Key news, key points on the fan score here. Obviously, 2 ways to build your fan score is by applying applying and increasing your collections. The key thing on the collections that I always like to put out there, if you're thinking about it, obviously there's nothing in the rules that I've seen yet that raises concern for it. If you're thinking about managing what you have in your collections now before the new period starts, so that you can optimize your collections once the period starts to increase fan score, that is something that looks like it's in the books and allowable. And obviously, if you want to save your purchases until next week, until the start of the new fan score, the new challenge week, that may be something you want to look at as well. As a reminder, the sales are registrations from Wednesday into Thursday. That is a registration from Wednesday at 9 a.m. PT. 8 a.m. PT into 8 a.m. PT into Friday, into Thursday, and then the Thursday sale at 9 a.m. PT for the NFLPA bundles. Obviously, that's going to work pretty well. That's going to fold right into the Ultimate Fan Challenge number 3, or the start of the Ultimate Fan Challenge number 3 next week. That also means that this week you can either decide to take part in the Fan Challenge or continue to take part in the Fan Challenge for challenge number 2 by participating in the sale here. Registration tomorrow, the 15th at 8 a.m. PT into the 16th, 8 a.m. PT there, with the sale kicking off at 9 a.m. PT for the NFLPA bundles tomorrow. Again, we can put a little flag on that. That is something that you might want to look at. Some other sales that are coming up in the near future. We'll cover them in a little bit as we do get later into the show with a couple more of the pieces we want to touch on. Otherwise, looking back at what we did see over the weekend, looking back to what we did have over the weekend, Friday into Saturday, with the Golden City Rush and the MV Motors Elite Fleet Sale. First, to touch off on the Golden City Rush, we can look at the details a little bit here. Obviously, with the Golden City Rush is something that is over. I've already touched on a little bit. We've already seen a couple times, but it is worth reminding ourselves what we did look at. The key thing, the big thing, if you are not, and if you had not been in on that, big thing was this second chance. The second chance obviously happened on Saturday. The first chance was the purchase or a sale on Thursday, for this Rainbow Bridge Block Explorer, this Golden Gate Bridge Block Explorer. Buying that Block Explorer reserved you a spot, one of 850 properties in the city of San Francisco that went unminted previously, that were never available for mint previously, what would have previously been called hidden gems. So of these hidden gems, obviously they were reserved for the first 850 people were able to buy that block explorer. I wasn't lucky, I didn't get one, but a lot of people did. Those people did have a period of 24 hours to purchase their block explorer into, from Friday into Saturday. If they had their block explorer to purchase that reserve property, could have been anywhere from 10,800 UPX to 166,320 UPX. They were randomized who got what properties reserved for them, which means there was people in the position where they could not purchase or chose not to purchase the property that was reserved for them. Either it was in the wrong neighborhood, or they just was too much UPX, whatever the case was. There was a number of these properties that were then available for sale on the open market. To anybody who wanted to purchase them. And kind of that reminder of anybody who wasn't there on Saturday, that heads up. We did see something here for the first time, and that was the way this sale went. The way Upland had used a gated sale in selling properties. That was you had to have a certain asset, which was this block explorer. Then you'd have a property reserved for you. You have a 24-hour hold on that property. You get to mint it. And then they were going to release all of these properties that were unminted all at once. What happened on Saturday was there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, a little bit of a snafu, a little bit of a delay on having those properties actually get released. There was a couple false starts. I mean, the plan originally was 9 a.m. PT. The properties unlocked. People go and have the chance to mint them. That didn't happen, but Upland did announce that they were going to try things at 9:30. There was a little delay there, a little false start, didn't get things kicked off. And then finally, we were able to get these the minting started, or getting the locks off, and people were available to mint at 9:45 a.m. on Saturday. The keynote here, or the key thing to keep in mind, at least for myself as who's participating in a lot of these, is this is an iterative process, and really this was the first time they did this type of mass unlock of properties that had been locked for a 24-hour period of time. The locks were actually extended longer than 24 hours so that they didn't accidentally go on sale without Upland trying to mass release them all, which was a good strategy. However, it meant that it was hard for them to pop those locks off. Once they all got off, everybody was on the equal footing who was in the city of San Francisco at the time, who was trying to go and mint those properties. And they minted fast. And it was about 15, 16 minutes. They were all minted out. None of those properties remain. And ultimately, that is 850 properties, which did not mint in the first place, that weren't available for sale when the city of San Francisco minted, and they weren't available until the second chance, until this opportunity was made available by Upland. Essentially, there was a mismatch, and we've had a couple of these in previous cities, mismatch between the data that Upland had and the properties that Upland was able to get mapped and out on the board. When they were able to get the solution, or they were able to get this solved, obviously they did have a sale, and that's exactly what we saw right here. Key things and a key takeaway here I do want to feature, or do want to put here, was one of the ways that that I approached this, and it was kind of interesting that this was actually available. Was this is all data? All these properties being mintable was data. And there's a lot of sites that use that data or display that data, and are able to give people access to sorting data, searching data, looking at things. Definitely not a sponsored shout out, but I do want to give a shout out just because it is what I used this time around. It is how I was able to find what properties were going to be available and then jump from one to the other. I think a lot of people were using, people who were successful and did find properties, they were using similar software. They were using similar sites to be able to take a look and get those things figured out. But there was also the opportunity, the potential that people were looking blind and trying to find them, and that doesn't usually work well. Again, these were pockets of properties that were all in odd places. There was properties that were all over the map. And what you're looking at right now is ablend.me. I was able to go into the property search. If I get down to my property search, come down here. There's a ton of other things here. We're looking at map assets, football, car searches, everything in here. So we have to search through everything all at once. to get back up to where I was, property search here, up towards the top. And if I had gone here, which I'm going to see 0 now, but we'll take a look. If I had gone here and looked at San Francisco for that period of 24 hours, after refreshing of data, they ended up showing up so I could see what was available to specifically come into mint in all neighborhoods in the city of San Francisco. And if I go and look right now, I am more than likely going to see nothing. Actually, I see a handful. Look at this. I'm more than likely going to see nothing. I would have seen nothing as of Friday. So I'm going to possibly take a look here. There's a couple things that I know that are locked properties. So it is very possible there may be a couple locked properties still in the game of Upland or still in the city of San Francisco. But just because these are popping up, who knows? Maybe it's worth taking a quick look. Jumping back into the game of Upland, coming over here, I can see if one of these properties, any of these properties is still available. And I'm guessing we have to mention if it pops up because this opportunity was one that was limited. Yeah, it's still showing up, but this is definitely a locked property. There was a few properties, and that was obviously discovered during the minting. There was a few properties that ended up being locked that weren't able to actually mint, and that's what we're seeing right here. We're probably going to see that the rest of these properties are all locked properties as well. Though a couple of these look like they popped up here as unminted available properties, and who knows? Maybe I'm going to surprise myself and see one of these as being available, but they should all be locked. And again, the point here is obviously there was an opportunity to have some of this data, to have some of this information in front of people. That obviously is lagging data here. That property did get minted, or looks like it should have been minted here. Since the release, we had another glitch property. It looks like right there that did not properly get pulled up in that sale. But definitely is something that we have one more locked property here as well, where there was a few properties in that sale, even though they were able to bring back the size, the map, the scaling back to the game of Upland for that property address. For whatever reason, that property was glitched, and they weren't able to get that property to show up or be mintable in the game of Upland. It looks like there's a couple more to be cleaned up. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be another sale here at some point in the future. But the big takeaway there is that is a gated sale. We've talked about this as a potential in the past. We've had a couple of these gated sales in the past where Upland says you buy this and you have the potential of buying that. That did show up obviously in the form of Stock Car Pro passes. That is something that we'll continue to run with Stock Car Pro passes. We'll talk a little bit more about the Pro passes in a little bit, but it is again something that Upland has started to perfect that opportunity, which means we'll likely see more of these. Get lucky, buy a pass. That means you get into a special sale other people aren't party to, other people aren't involved in. And of course, looking forward to seeing that happen because, again, it is something where people like that random aspect. People like that chance. People like getting lucky in these circumstances. And of course, the other part of the sale is very much the same thing. This random opportunity random opportunity to purchase definitely did become a part and parcel to the MV Motors Elite Fleet sale taking place over this weekend. The Elite Fleet sale was something that's a little interesting. Is definitely worth noting for two reasons. The first reason it's worth noting is because it was the first opportunity for a discount for a wholesale price to our MetaVenture holders from the game of Upland to specifically go and buy something below mint price, buying them specifically below mint price, so they had the opportunity to sell at a profit without having to sell significantly above mint. And that's exactly what this sale was. There was some speculations, there were some concerns, there were some doubters, there were some people who were saying the showrooms, the car showrooms aren't going to be interested in purchasing these packages. The speculation, the concern for some people was for 250 USD, no UPX option. Were the showroom owners willing to put the USD out to buy these cars instead of paying in UPX? And the resounding answer was yes. They did actually sell out relatively quickly. There were people who were in line who didn't get the opportunity to purchase, or people who had wanted to originally purchase who didn't get the opportunity to purchase a package. So very much there was something that at least 50 people were interested in. We did see that, in that selling out, what people did get and the opportunity was they're going to get three Series T trucks. Either they're going to get 3Ls or some combination of the Series TL, Series TE, and Series TR. And again, no guarantees on the E's and the R's, but definitely a high likelihood that you could end up with them, because there's a 24.91% chance that any single one of those trucks was going to be a TE. 15.69% chance that any of those trucks was going to be a TR, and obviously the remainder were just going to be the base mint model, or the TLs, as Upland is now calling them. This was something, again, that did sell through. This was something that, as a showroom owner, if you've got experience on that, if you got lucky, if you ended up with an R out of your bundle, feel free to let people know what you ended up getting, what your luck was, what you ended up seeing happen for you. But again, I can see this as being something that's going to repeat, just like with the gated sales, just like the buy this pass, you can come into the sale. This is a gated sale as well. We're only letting the people who have a MetaVenture, a showroom for cars, come in and register. You have that registration period like many other sales. And then if you qualify, if you were able to register, then you have a period of time to purchase in a randomized order, just like we have for most of our limited sales. And again, it looks like the people who are showroom owners were willing to put the 249 USD out in order to get 3 cars, with that roll of the dice, with that chance that at least one of them was going to be an E or an R. Getting some value there, obviously, if you did get at least one TR in that bunch, being that the mint price on a TR, if you were to try to go buy one from Upland, is about 240 or is 240,000 UPIX. So it was definitely a sale that made sense for a lot of people. Being the first discounted sale, paying less than mint as a MetaVenture, I see that as a sign that Upland is likely to repeat this. I know a lot of MetaVentures have been asking for this for a long time, asking for that opportunity, asking for the chance to be the first point of sale, be the first point of sale to the public. And again, that is just the opportunity that was afforded right here. The one other thing I want to point out about this sale is, look at the last 3 months. How many car sales have we had? We had this one special sale directly to MetaVentures. I like this. I like that it looks like we slowed down a little bit in our car sales. We know that we've heard from MetaVentures, we've heard from individuals talking about they're not able to get huge flips or huge profits on cars anymore, because it seems like there's as many cars or enough cars to satisfy most people's desire to have a car right now. Obviously, we hadn't had a truck sale in a while. Obviously, we haven't had the TRs go out for a while, or we haven't seen TRs go out this year. So that was an opportunity for Upland to put those TRs out, the 2023s, and for Upland to say, hey, you can buy more trucks, but you have to go through a MetaVenture if you want to do so. I do like the overall outcome of this. I do like the potential of what it looks like for the future, and looking forward to seeing more of these sales kick off here in the next several months here. Getting into the ugliest sweater showdown again. This is something that UGC contests be what they are. Prizes for these contests be what they are. They're a great opportunity to get your art out there. Again, you can highlight, you can showcase, you can show what you can do on these contests. It can give you an opportunity to become an artist for another MetaVenture. It can be an opportunity for you to attract people to your MetaVenture if you already have a showroom, if you're already designing your own UGC, if you're already building your own assets in your own factory. It's an opportunity to show people what you can do, so they can come take a look and see what you're working on. Of course, that is something that we are very much looking at, being an expanding part of the game of Upland in the Ugly Showdown. We have just that. We have an opportunity for people to make, and here's another point of genesis, the very first UGC, user-generated content, user-generated versions of Wearable Legits. What you're looking at to compete is obviously you are going to have some guidelines. You're going to have some submissions you have to do. We'll get into those. But the big things up front is they're going to be the opportunity to get 0.3 Spark, 10 designers getting 0.3 Spark. The top three our designers are also going to get a Chicago property. The ugliest sweater showdown here. Quick details run through. Obviously, 10 ugly sweater wearables are going to come or going to get made post this contest. It's going to be the first iteration for Upland to test the ability or test their ability, I should say, of working with UGC creators to make wearables that look good, that function well, that we're going to be able to integrate and use with our avatars, with our Ready Player Me avatars. And it could very well be the future of UGC in the game of Upland, people being able to design their own wearables, partners being able to come in with major brands and being able to bring their items into the game of Upland, and Upland being able to give them a good platform to bring those designs in. And who knows, maybe we've got a big sneaker company coming in 6 months. Cross fingers, who knows, we'll get our avatars dressed the way we want. And we have an existing partnership with Mavion. Fingers crossed, this UGC may be a boost for them, as they are a fashion-driven company that maybe looking at that opportunity as well to bring fashion into the game of Upland here more into the future. Again, the opportunity is to win 0.3 Spark. Obviously, you get your own ugly sweater wearable that's going to get made by the game of Upland for you. So that is that opportunity for Upland to actually proof of concept, a designed by the community item. They go through a specific process. There's a vetting tool to make sure it passes muster. And then the team of Upland actually gets that made, into a wearable legit that you can use in Layer 1 Upland. The three properties that are up for grabs that are available: 1730C West Fullerton Ave in Chicago, 2574 North Clybourne Street in Chicago, and 1730B West Fullerton Ave in Chicago. 2 West Fullertons, look at that. And the ugliest sweater showdown schedule. Again, I did want to point this out. We do want to keep reminding people. This already started. This started last week, Thursday the 9th. But the end of the submission period is the 30th. Keep in mind that if you're in the States, we have Thanksgiving next week. There's a lot going on. It might seem like a long period between now and the 30th. That time could definitely be eaten up with holiday and travel and all of that as well. 9 a.m. PT is the time that you have to get your submissions in. Keep in mind that Upland does give you one opportunity for resubmission if you do submit by the 30th, and there is any issue with your submission prior to you being able to be judged or you being able to compete in this. You do have to have it pass all those tests. You have one opportunity at resubmission to correct any of those issues, and that resubmission date is Thursday, the 7th of December at 9 a.m. PT, which means we do have a turnaround here. Turnaround of the 8th. Winner is going to be announced the 8th, Friday the 8th of December, which means we're about 3 weeks out, just over 3.5 weeks out from having these wearables be displayed to the community. And then theoretically, at some point, they'll be minted and people will be able to wear those wearables. So we'll be able to see them, see how those user-generated wearables end up looking in Layer 1 Upland. So definitely something to keep a note on, put a pin on, and keep your eyes on. If you want to participate and you haven't participated yet, basic guidelines here. Do take a look. Do jump into announcements and take a look at the ugliest sweater showdown, Battle of the Bizarre Sweaters contest. Again, the simple is get down here to details. Down here in details, you've got your submission form. You've got a Git book, you got a template, you've got all of the information you need to review. If you are a designer, if you've got the skills to pay the bills, if you know Blender, you can go in here and get an idea of what they're actually asking for, what they need as far as deliverables for files, what your dimensions can be, or what your polygon count or triangle count can be in these contests. And of course, if you don't know all these things, one of the things that the team of Upland has been better about recently than they have been in the past, and hopefully getting better about in the future, is Upland-UGC. That is Upland-UGC. channel in Discord. You're able to put your questions in there. People from the UGC content team, the Upland employees, answer questions that are posed there. If there's something that doesn't make sense to you, you can go and take a look there. If you have questions, you can also go and read the comments, the flow, the running commentary, because keep in mind, there are people who want to help others who are non-Upland employees. Sometimes they're able to go answer questions that are posted there. Sometimes people make points that you don't know to think of yourself if you're new to the process. So very much it is something that it is worth reading through if this is your first time, your first contest taking place in the game of Upland. And of course, taking a look at the comments. Hello, 615 meets. Hello, Lawson Coins. And yes, very much so, Aaron. Looking forward to getting these wearables in the game of Upland, and hopefully we will, and likely we will see a wearable sale around Christmas time this year. Fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. As far as jumping into the next future here and looking at the past in order to do so, to put a little bit here on a little bit of an asterisk on structures at the moment, giving people a little bit more of a feel as to why it's worth noting now, why it's worth having a discussion, or why it's worth considering now as far as structures are concerned. Worth potentially doing research and making your own decisions as far as what you want to do for your structures as you build more. Is a little bit of a note here that's been going on in the Upland UGC, and this communication, this topic has been flowing around this idea of how do I scale, or what am I doing for scale, or what's the right scale for my assets, for my map assets. The reason why the scale matters is people don't want their swing set to be too tall in consideration of how tall a structure is. They don't want the doorway to be half the height of their swing set. Their swing set's supposed to be for small children, or vice versa. They don't want their doorway to be way taller than something that is supposed to be, people are supposed to be able to use. And the problem that we've had, or a lot of people have noted or come up with in the last couple years here since we've had these structures, is that the scaling just doesn't make sense. We've had these contests. People have been building assets. People have this scale of meters of, we use UP and we use UP2 for sizing, for scaling of property sizes. Ultimately, when you go and design things in Blender, you can have a scale in meters. That is something that Upland looks at for scale and size when these assets actually come into the game of Upland, so they can have some scale. And then the questions come up with people who are like, hey, I put in a request. I wanted to have it this size. I got a response from Upland suggesting that I resize, or asking me if I really want this size. And this is a response. This is Jason Festa. If I look right here under my notes, Jason Festa. If I look under Jason Festa is a member of the team of Upland. He's actually a creative director with Upland, and of course on this side of the UGC side of things. The comment back to that question of comparing in size of structures, here's the note. I would not compare to legacy structures or legacy buildings, as their floor heights are not true to the real world. If you want to personally double check, drag along legacy models into your own docs. Also note, legacy models will be phased out 100% shortly. Couple notes on that. A couple questions get risen, a couple thoughts get there. What are we looking at when we talk about phased out? I think we're looking at, and I think we've discussed in the past, this concept of sunsetting, that at some point, all of these things that we've been able to have in the past for structures and potentially other things we've had in the game of Upland, as the game of Upland moves forward, we are going to have some requirements or some concerns that we haven't had in the past. The scaling hasn't been as much of an issue in the past in Upland because we haven't had people walking down the streets. That is a real possibility. Upland's talked about, having those integrations. We're talking about life coming to the game of Upland. If we're going to have dogs and foxes and bears or whatever the case is, we can't have their scale, being way off in consideration to our structures. It doesn't make sense. And again, that is something that Upland obviously is already thinking about as we do move towards life. Upland has talked about this concept, and this has been a Don's pie in the sky long-term view of coming into a cafe, just like the one you're in right now, looking out the window, watching a race in real time happen. Somebody's running a race on that track, and you can see the cars driving through. And obviously, to have that happen, it makes sense for everything to be at scale. It would have to be at scale for you to be in layer one, looking out the window and seeing this car, and you don't want the car to be 3 times the size of the building that you're in. So I definitely see the idea of Upland rescaling being an important one. A lot of the people who are involved in UGC have been putting their hands up for 6 months or a year and a half even, and saying, what's going to happen with these structures? These structures don't make sense. How do I scale these structures? If I go to and try to do a layer 2, what do I do with the scale of these structures? Because now, if in layer 2, if I try to make a Ready Player Me avatar fit with some of these buildings, the building doesn't even come up to the height of a person when we're talking about doorways. So it definitely has been a question that's been raised for a while. Solutions are a few. Obviously, the sunsetting means that we may lose the ability in a short period of time to build these new structures. Losing the ability to build these structures in the future likely looks like having a new set of structures replace them. Obviously, new set of structures built around the concept of scaling. And then the question would be, what would happen with the old structures? There's one or two possibilities. Again, we don't have the answer. Looking forward to potentially being able to discuss this with a team here shortly so we can get those answers. I don't think they're ready to give them, but one of the two options is that they rescale the structures. They phase out the legacy that you built. They rescaled a version that's going to fit on the same footprint, but potentially be rescaled for height of floors, and they can replace every structure that's in the game of Upland one for one with that version of that structure. Whether or not that's the solution they take, I don't think people are going to be too upset about that if it, again, matches the footprint, if it stays in the property that's supposed to be there, if it just changes the scale, the height of the structures that do end up getting built. But then the other opportunity is that they just stay there. And if they stay there, then potentially their utility, the way they're going to interact with other parts of the game, the way they're going to interact with 3D models, with race cars driving by them, with people walking by them, that scale is always going to be off compared to the new series of structures. Does that mean that if in 3 years there is in-game experiences, they look different when people have an in-game experience? Does that preclude them from having in-game experiences in 2-3 years when you can have an in-room experience? That is still unknown. I'm looking forward to getting more answers on these from the team. This is one of those things that looking at having an interview on this at some point, but again, this is one of those things that they appear not to be ready to discuss on the next of those structures. Hope to have an interview, sit down when we do have those the next set of structures come out, so we get those answers up front. We know exactly what to expect by the time we start sunsetting the legacy buildings, the legacy structures, and we can start moving towards that next set. As far as plans moving forward, again, no financial advice, no gameplay, no game strategy advice, but that does give people the opportunity to think about how many more structures they want to build. What types of structures do they want to build? Do they want to focus their spark on building factories that likely aren't going to have as much of a concern for rescaling, just because of the way they're going to be built and footprinting and all of that? Are they going to build a lot more structures of the legacy because they think that having legacy structures built on the map may have some value, may have some utility, may have some, I don't know, some speculative value where people think they're worth something because they're the old style in 3 or 6 or 8 years down the line? That's all going to be up to individual builders, people who are going to be spending their spark to build structures on the properties they own. And again, that opportunity, that suggestion, that consideration of whether you leave a property undeveloped because you want to build the next structure that might be available after these legacy structures are phased out. That's also a consideration, and that's definitely something that's worth keeping an eye on. Zquays 3. Well, welcome in. You said you're new to all this. Of course, we can get into the basics. We do get into the basics sometimes on these. Take a look get over to YouTube. I'll be putting a new series out. There's a couple series out there already about getting into structures, learning more about structures. You can always go into the bottom of your screen where the three dots are. Like to think of them as the magic hot dog. Like to think of that as ketchup, mustard, and relish on top of that hot dog. And in there, when you go to game resources, you can get a play guide. You get a resources to get you more information on a tutorial, to get more on structure building. But of course, check out YouTube. I will have some more videos out in the next couple of weeks on some of those basics, getting started with structures, getting started with what to look at, how to build your structures, and how to start building your spark balances to build those structures as you do plan out development of your properties. Dropping in, seeing Lawson coins. I believe that in real life, we call these structures historic, ancient, iconic, among others. Maybe. Maybe if these get put into a legacy status, maybe they stay there and they look the way they look, and people say, "Wow, look at that early upland." In 10 years, when there's more of the new structures than there are of the legacy structures, I don't know. I mean, again, I always look at is utility affected? Because again, that's the biggest and most exciting part of the game we've been waiting for a while, to have the utility, to have that next level of utility come into the game. And if it is going to affect utility, obviously I'm going to want the new version, if that's going to enhance my utility. If it's going to look better alongside my map assets, I'm going to want to have that consideration in play. So that is definitely something just to think about as you are developing, as you're building your structures now. And then one other part of that, obviously, is if you are on the UGC side of things, if you're designing fences or you're designing, things to put on the lawn, you're designing bird baths, just keep in mind for scaling. It's probably better to scale towards the real world sizes. Scale a bird bath to, 3 foot high, 2.5 feet high, almost, a meter high, maybe. But you don't want to necessarily just scale it to how high does that bird bath come up to the door on an apartment building. If that apartment building is misscaled as far as the height of that door, you don't want your bird bath to be misscaled when the majority of the structures in the game of Upland are rescaled to be closer to real world heights, real world scaling, and maybe making your bird bath look either really big or really small. And we did have an example of this earlier this week in the cafe, someone dropping their design for a gnome that was designed around the real world concept or closer to the real world concept of what a garden gnome looks like, and seeing it being a lot shorter than the UNICEF Brazil that we had last year. Last year we had these gnomes from UNICEF Brazil. They are a certain height. They looked a lot taller than that, what we would call correct proportion, or more similarly proportioned to real world gnomes, that 18-inch tall garden gnome. That scaling obviously made the two look very different in size. The design looked very different, the way that it was done. And again, that's the potential of UGC. A lot more detail in that particular model, and looking forward to that continued growth on the UGC side. If you're on the UGC side, again, what the new structures look like is, or the potential is, just think about your scaling. Think about how your scaling is going to look in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, and scale appropriately. And that's just worth putting that flag out there now. And even before the game of Upland puts that note out there about the changing sizes of buildings. All right. And last thing I want to touch on, obviously here, this idea of what can we spend our OpEx on in the next week. So taking a look at a couple things, obviously the biggest one worth looking at, and the countdown clock is up now. Take a quick look at it in just a second. And that countdown clock is for our next sale, our next chapter of Totems. Next chapter of Totems, chapter 4, is coming up in the next week. So that is definitely worth having our math on, having our eyes open to, and calculating that against our OPEX balance, knowing our prices of our OPEX options, a 55,000 OPEX on a totem pass. It may be something you want to consider when you're deciding what you're buying, what you're purchasing. If you decide to buy NFLPA bundles this Thursday, how does that affect your ability to buy a totem pass on Monday? So keep that in mind. And of course, I say Monday, I put that out there, I dribble that out there. But let's take a look at that countdown clock. It's right up here. If I can get to it, I can share it. There it is. Countdown clock. 5 days, 11 hours, 7 minutes, 33 seconds, and counting. That's when we're going to have our end of the countdown clock. That is going to be a registration period. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 day, out 11 hours. So we're going to be looking into sale on Monday. Looks like we're going to be looking to sale on Monday the 20th. Again, we've had Upland redate some of these sale times, so definitely do keep that in mind as far as if things move around at all. But as of right now, that does look like we're looking into the 20th for registration and sale dates to keep in mind here of next week. With that sale, obviously, that is one of the big ones, the 55,000 OPEX to have in reserve and for thoughts to be in place. The other big sale that we do know of, obviously, I did mention it already, NFLPA sale on Thursday, registration Wednesday into Thursday. Prices are over the map. There are a number of different bundles available, different bundles with different UPX prices, and people do sometimes end up with the opportunity to buy multiple bundles. So just keep that in mind when you are preparing, when you're getting ready for purchasing, and what you may be looking at potentially purchasing there. The other thing that we are looking at as a potential is we still have more weeks to sell of the car passes. We do have different race weeks to sell of the mementos and the legits. So this is key. We do know that the Stock Car Pro, the Brazilian Stock Car Pro, is a partnership Upland's taking seriously. We do know that it has high speculation among players. People have been putting a lot of effort. Those sales have been going very fast, and I do not expect Upland to leave any of these opportunities on the table. And what that looks like and what that means is, since we do have more weeks, more race weeks to sell for mementos, means we're likely going to have more of these sales. Upland's been giving it less than 24 hours notice when these sales take place. Upland's been pushing these sales relatively rapidly, relatively quickly. So we may be seeing that we have a sale here coming up very shortly, possibly this week into next week, the week of or next week, the week of Thanksgiving. We may have some slight scaling or changing of schedule. We do know that in the past, some of the holiday weeks, sometimes when we have holidays, budding events, the events end up getting shifted a little bit because some of our staff, at least staff in the United States, do follow these holiday schedules. So we'll have to see what ends up happening next week. But between now and next Friday, again, I'm looking at the Friday the 24th. It is very possible that we have another Stock Car Pro Series sale with those bundles ranging from 50,000 UPX down to 5 really, but the 15 is where people typically want to be, or 10 is where people will typically want to be for the starting of those bundles, with the opportunity to start getting the memento passes. Keep it in mind that if you are lucky, if you do get one of those memento passes, there will be a car sale at some point shortly thereafter, as mentioned, gated car sale, and you would be winning yourself the opportunity of buying a car. That's another $100 USD to keep in mind. So that does give us some ideas of what we're looking at in the next week. Other than the periodic sales that we likely look at having between now and the end of next week, theoretically now and the 21st, when you talk about the totems, we are also looking at just the idea of the game of Upland. People still cleaning up from the expansion in London. People already had the opportunity or a little bit of opportunity from yesterday after the reveal to either sell or buy properties. If they didn't hit collection, they may be selling properties at a discount that they minted thinking they were in a collection. If you want to own in a collection area, it may be something you're looking at purchasing. There's something definitely to keep in mind. We do know that there is the potential, there is the chance at some point London does expand. The use case of properties in London for treasure hunting, that's changed a little bit as the city of London has expanded further. So that is something people are considering as well. And of course, we just have the regular continue minting, continue buying that people are working on, getting the right properties for the future of Upland, getting the right properties for potentially building structures or working towards factories or other meta venture properties. And that's what we're overall looking at right now. One thing I will put the long-term note on is typically we do run something around the holidays. Historically, we have Thanksgiving and Christmas, where there is a Block Explorer sale or some other form of asset sale. Obviously, we did see the first Block Explorer sale going to our MetaVenturist. That was a USD sale to MetaVenturist Block Explorer stores, with them being the ones to resell the Block Explorers. We could see a similar sale sometime around Thanksgiving, or we can see that open to the public. So keep your eyes out on that. That's one more thing to be budgeting if you are looking for things to budget. Those sales, those Block Explorer sales, usually in USD. Otherwise, for the next week, we'll be looking out between now and next Tuesday to see what happens. Likely before we have this cafe show back in the cafe next week on the 21st, we will have had a sale. For sure, had a sale for totems. It looks like by the countdown clock, it looks like we will have had the NFLPA coming to a rolling stop for the challenge number 2 into challenge number 3, with that actually taking place on the 23rd. And it looks like, as far as timing with Stock Car Pro, we could have a sale. We could get surprised and have a Stock Car Pro bundle sale between now and the 21st. If not, likely having that sale by the end of next week. Just things to keep budgeting and keep in mind. But for tonight, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Looks like we're right on the hour. Anybody who is here, thank you for joining in. Thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for commenting in the comments. I will be going back and taking a quick look at some of those comments and see if we can see what's going on there. But more than anything, the opportunity to converse and conversate and have people have conversation is going to be open. I'm going to say, feel free to unmute your mics. Feel free to be part of the conversation. Thank you for joining in today. And of course, looking forward to seeing you all next week. Next Tuesday, 7 p.m. PT here in the Upland Cafe. But Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. PT, if you do get over into Discord, take a look. Come see us in the Upland Cafe Voice. We do run a show there Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. PT, with the live in person, with a video, every Tuesday right here in the Upland Cafe in San Francisco. Thank you so much. Feel free to open the mics. The floor is yours.